Hey, it's ScamZumi here to teach you about Monster Hunter World. This is probably going to be my one and only Monster Hunter video, and this pig is freaking me out because it follows you around everywhere. As you can see, I've been playing for a hot minute. I have gathered 4,700 Unity points, and I like the switch checks. I've also watched at least one YouTube video, so who better to explain to you about the switch checks than I? Is there a whole bunch of other more educational and entertaining content out there? I mean, yeah, but are they run by an anime AI? I think not. So let's get going. Boom, AI hacks, training grounds, don't even need a loading screen. And now we're in a different outfit. By the way, here's my red gear if you're interested. Fruit, I don't even know if this gear is like my main set or anything. I haven't played in weeks. The Switch X is a really cool weapon. It has an X mode. You can press triangle to draw into it. Why triangle? Sometimes you just want to draw it and perform a different attack than the default stab that you might do if you press triangle while running at an opponent. And one of those attacks might be the circle spam. Spam circle to your heart's content, swinging away for amazing AoE DPS. Fun fact, the DPS increases the longer you hold it, and the motion values are different from your left and right weapon swing. However, they do consume stamina and they leave you very vulnerable. That is, unless you use your slinger equipment for this super rad disengaging action that also has a chance to stun the monster with the right slinger ammo. But we're not here for evasive maneuvers, the Switch X has none of those anyway, so instead, use 3 wild swings, followed by a triangle, for a heavy slam. It looks rad, it does a lot of damage, and it buffs your Switch X with a new property. From now on, the next 45 seconds, you will deal additional trip damage to monsters. It does not do additional damage per se, but it will cause them to trip and flinch more often. So if you do go into X mode, try and keep this mode up as often as you can. Note that if you do not wait for the triple attack, you will simply do an overhead slash, which is quite a lot less valuable. Also worthy to note is that this combo, 1, 2, 3, is actually one of your most damaging X combos, and you can loop it with a triangle and circle. When the monster is down, you are usually able to perform 2 of these in succession before it gets up again. One more extra thing about the wild swing is that you can use a Morph Slash out of it using R2. This Morph Slash is the most powerful Morph Slash in your arsenal and can be looped as such. Pressing back and R2 once again. And back into the circle Morph Slash. and back again. Whilst this Morph Slash is loopable and the most damaging one, it does require a monster to be very, very still indeed and very predictable, lest you miss your most damaging attack. If you plan to wake up a monster, the final hit of the Morph Sweep is one of your best bets. If you can pull it off, that is. Fruit's sake. Don't worry, we have the power of editing. We can just keep doing it until we get it. And then we show only the one that actually hits. And then everyone will be like, oh my gosh, she's so good. Just like that. Oh wow, that only took one try. Lucky. Of course, the overhead slam is another good option for waking up sleeping monsters. More X stuff. Here's a basic combo. Triangle, triangle, triangle. Performing the side, the rise, and the slash. You might notice that the side sucks, so try not to use it. Instead, open your attacks with triangle, circle into triangle, and repeat that. Why does the side exist? It exists for being lame, as well as having one more defensive option, because this is one of the few attacks in X mode that you can also use your slinger ammo with in case of emergencies. You might be wondering, I don't have a big shield. Why do I only get this tiny little hop whenever I perform an attack that gets me hit every time? Where is my defensive and evasive options? Well, after most attacks in X mode, excluding the wild swing, you can perform a disengaging move with circle back. Whoop! The fade slash. It looks cool and it gets you out of there. A very viable technique to poke monsters safely if they are very aggressive is to perform the rising slash into a fade slash. As for the jumping attacks, not much to say about them. This jumping sweep is kinda cool. You also perform a little poke when you are advancing. You can also perform a little poke by pressing circle forward or after rolling. Or after rolling. Or after rolling. It's not very good, but it gets you places, you know? So why is it called a switch X? It's because you can swap from X into sword mode. You can totally start in sword mode if you want by pressing R2 from a cheated position. So cool. In sword mode, the first thing you want to do is charge up your files. Right now they're empty, but you can charge them quickly with a triangle circle circle combo, which you can loop as many times as you need. With the files now charged, our sword will deal additional file damage based on the file that the sword has equipped. Different swords come with different files, from element damage, physical damage, exhaust, and so on. Once a sword is fully charged, the most damaging combo would be triple triangle followed by a circle, repeat. You might notice that whilst I'm attacking, My file energy is rapidly decreasing, and now it is in a very dangerous threshold. Should it be emptied, my sword will run out completely and I'll be forced back into X mode with a pretty long animation. You do not want this. Hehe, I'm clipping through the pillar. Instead, dynamically swap back into X mode by pressing R2 after an attack. Do so correctly and your file energy will get restored just a little bit. From this point, you'll have to stay in X mode until you're happy again with your file energy, which you can get simply by waiting or attacking. And then you can organically swap back into sword mode. Oh no. Note that if you try to force swap into sword mode when your energy is not at the required threshold, you will instead do this long recharging animation which, while cool, is definitely going to get you killed. Sword mode is heavy. You move with the speed of an old grandma, and your tiny hops become even more pathetic. So what offensive options do you have? Well, none really, except for the Fate Slash, which you can perform after doing an attack. You can do this by pressing R2 and the back button. Fun fact, you can chain the Fate Slash into another Fate Slash, but only if you get the timing right. Boom, AI hacks. Suddenly the environment is different. Wow. There are 4 ways to play with switch hacks. There are 4 ways to play with switch hacks. The first is to stay in X mode for most of the fight, providing trips to your teammates. The second is to basically stick in sword mode as much as you can, dealing large amount of damage, possibly the largest in the whole game, except for maybe dual blades. The third option is to dynamically swap between X mode and sword mode as is necessary, so you can benefit from both high damage as well as the slightly better mobility and utility from X mode. The fourth and final version is the zero-sum discharge spam, which I shall demonstrate momentarily. With your sword charged the files completely, you are now ready to perform a zero-sum discharge. On a card it works slightly different than on a monster. On a monster you can perform a raw a raw element discharge, and you will hook onto their side to complete the attack. In this case I'm going to have to hook on, which is something that you can do in the against real monsters as well. You don't even have to be in sword mode for this, so aim your slinger, hook on, press triangle circle and spam the fruit out of triangle. Bam! Amazing damage, very cool. Not quite as much damage as being in raw sword mode, but very close and usually pretty safe. Unless you're fighting a Lefrian. Worthy to notice that if you're using Safijiva gear, using a hook to grapple onto a monster counts as sheathing your weapon for the purposes of the health restore, so be careful. Against monsters, you can totally do an element discharge, followed by a grapple, and continue the attack from there. Several advantages of this technique is that you can spam zero-sum discharge even if your element energy runs out, and you do not lose sharpness over it. One final trick: when you're spamming zero-sum discharge, it's actually better to cancel the attack when it's near its end by stopping the spam and pressing downwards. This way you'll land with very fast recovery frames, do almost the same damage, and you'll be ready to go again for another round. One step further, and upon landing, you can press R2 to swap into X mode and regain a little bit of file energy should you require it. This technique also helps with avoiding monsters' attacks if they're trying to knock you off. And that's it, bye!